What if I told you that the thing standing between you and the next level of your career isn't your skills, isn't your experience, and it isn't your resume? What if it's a voice? A voice that shows up uninvited, usually right when things start to get good, and it will whisper things to you like, are you ready for this? Are you sure? Or don't speak up. What if you're wrong? Will they find out? Well, that voice has a name. And today we're going to learn it. We're going to call it out. And I'm going to hand you the tools to stop letting it run the show. This is your introduction to positive intelligence, one of my favorite tools in my coaching toolkit and something that found me at the lowest point of my life, truly. And when it worked under the most challenging of circumstances, when other traditional modalities did not, I knew I had to share this far and wide. So get ready. I have a feeling this one is going to stick. Hi, it's Jamie here at the Leadership Laboratory, where ambitious women come to build confidence, skills, and community so they can lead on their terms as their authentic selves. As we kick off today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already so that you never miss an episode. All right, let's get to it. Well, I'll start with a quick story, and I'll preface it with this. I have a dog. Her name is Penny, and she has a doggy door that goes out to our backyard. Very early one morning, I was upstairs getting ready, mascara in hand, when I heard a man's voice coming from my backyard. Seemed particularly odd because my husband was still in bed and we didn't have any work planned in the backyard that day. But before I could even process what was happening, the next thing I hear is my husband leaping out of bed, running to the balcony overlooking the back door and yelling, "Get out of our house!" So then I rushed over to my husband, and the two of us are standing there looking down at a man who is headfirst, waist deep, through our doggy door. He had wandered into our backyard. He had been talking to himself out loud. He spotted the doggy door and was now attempting to crawl through it into our home. Our eyes locked for a second and nobody moved. And then my husband and I, now in unison, yelled, "Get out!" And this time, his eyes got really wide-eyed and he shimmied on back. Well, from there, we secured the doggy door, we called the police, the man was arrested, and everybody was okay, including my dog, Penny. She slept through the entire thing. Classic Penny, not a guard dog. But here's how this story ties into today. Negative thoughts, mean voices in your head, they work exactly the same way as that situation. They will come in uninvited, just like that man did. They will enter your safe space when you least expect it. And if you don't hear them or firmly tell them to leave, who knows how long they will stay or what damage they will do. But here's the great news. You have the agency to respond. You can't control what comes at you, but you can absolutely control how you respond and what you do next. That is mental fitness, my friends, and that is what positive intelligence is built on. I've been a certified positive intelligence coach for years now, and I use this framework personally every single day. This is not something I teach merely from the outside looking in. I live it, I practice it daily. And two of the most common comments I hear when I teach this are, "Jamie, why don't they teach this in school? I wish I had known about this sooner." And I also hear, "Wow, I can use this just as much at home as I can at work." And I wholeheartedly agree with both of those comments, and I cannot wait to share this with you today. So let me describe someone to you and tell me if any of this sounds familiar. So this woman is good at her job, really good. She's been in her role for a couple years, and she genuinely knows she is ready for more. She can see that next level. She can even picture the conversation that she wants to have with her boss. She's practiced it in her head 100 times. But every time she practices it, it comes out sounding more like a complaint. Why haven't I had access to more leadership opportunities? And that is not how she wants to show up. So her one-on-ones, they come and they go. And even though she says it in her head, she doesn't say it out loud. And the restlessness continues to build. Well, that was Sydney when we first started working together. And I want to say this gently but clearly. Sydney is one of the most capable women I have worked with. She is smart. She is driven. She's completely deserving of everything she was reaching for. The gap was not her capability, had nothing to do with her IQ. She was highly intelligent. She knew her role. She knew the intricate details of it well. The gap was what and how she was framing it in her head. I share Sydney's story because some version of it might be living in your world right now. Maybe it's not the same conversation. Maybe it's a decision that you've been second guessing, or an opportunity you've talked yourself out of, or just that quiet hum of knowing you're capable of more, but something just keeps getting in the way. That something is not a lack of skill. It is a thought pattern. And thought patterns, and this is the good news here, are completely, entirely changeable. They're malleable. That is what positive intelligence is built to do. So let me give context on where positive intelligence PQ fits so you can see why it is such a big deal and where it fits alongside of what you already know. So let's start with one of the other Qs, IQ, the intelligence quotient. IQ is a measure of our cognitive abilities, simply thought of as how smart we are. This concept was first shared in the early 1900s, 1905, actually. And behavioral psychologists thought, well, okay, our job is done. This is going to be the perfect predictor of workplace performance, how smart somebody is. Well, I'm sure you already know where that went. There was more to learn. A few decades later, in the 90s, emotional intelligence, or EQ, the emotional intelligence quotient, came on the scene. And EQ turned out to be a 4 times greater predictor of performance than IQ, which is still true today. How we feel matters enormously. And if you caught last week's episode, we did a deep dive on EQ and why it is the career accelerant that nobody told us about. Well, this week, we're going one layer deeper now to my personal favorite of the Qs, and that's PQ. In 2012, a brilliant man named Shirzad Chamine made a really important discovery. What's underlying all of this, the IQ and the EQ, is how we think. What our thoughts are telling us. That is the starting point and the most malleable of the three, PQ, positive intelligence. So this is a newer concept. It's not taught in schools, and it is a game changer. And here's the definition that I would love for you to hold. Positive intelligence is your mental capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive mindset rather than react with a negative one. I'll say that one more time. Positive intelligence is your mental capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive mindset rather than react with a negative one. There's 2 words, there's 2 action verbs in that definition that do a lot of the heavy lifting there. You may have already guessed what these 2 words are. It is respond versus react. The space of responding is where confidence lives. It's where executive presence lives. It's where calm under pressure lives, where the version of you that you're proud of shows up. The space of reacting, that is where the emails you regret live. That's where the snappy comment is. That's where the decision made out of fear instead of with clarity. Yep, that's where that lives. PQ gives you the tools to choose to respond, even and especially when the situation is hard, when the stakes feel enormous, when your brain is working very hard to pull you over into that space of reaction. When challenges or unexpected circumstances come your way, thoughts are always oscillating between 2 modes, ones that are serving you and ones that are sabotaging. Positive intelligence is that ratio. It captures that ratio and it's measurable. You can actually capture it in your PQ score. And for any analyticals who are listening or HR leaders who are looking for a metric to gauge behavioral performance, this is it. And this is the part that gets me fired up every single time. It's something that you can move. It's something that you can improve. So going back to Sydney's example, Sydney's PQ score when we first started working together was a 23. So what that means is that 23% of the time, her thoughts were defaulting to helpful, forward moving territory. But 77% of the time, the inverse of that, her brain was stuck in fear and doubt and self-protection and showing up as negative thoughts. So no wonder that conversation with her boss felt impossible. Her own thoughts were working against her before she even walked in the room. Not Sydney's fault by any means, and not baked into her DNA either. Rather, a pattern that had formed subconsciously, which was working to reinforce itself. Let's do a deeper dive here on the PQ score. Let's talk about that. The PQ scale runs from 20 to 80. So you can think about it almost like an indicator light on your gas tank. Although unlike your gas tank, there is no zero with PQ. There's also no 100. And I say that specifically if I have any hyperachievers out there. You can't score 100 on this scale. It tops out at 80. And a score around, let's say 56, this is about average, meaning that 56% of the time, your thoughts are working in your favor. They're working for you. And 44% of the time, they're standing in your way. They're working against you. But here's what makes this score so powerful. It gives you a concrete starting point. It tells you the ratio. And when you know the ratio, you can start to shift it. It's not an invitation. This number is not an invitation to judge yourself. Rather, it's benchmark data. And when you have this benchmark data, you can make informed decisions about how you want to change it if you find it beneficial to do so. I mean, I know I sure do, but that, of course, would be up to you. And I'm going to give you today the assessment that you can use to find out your PQ score. So think about what that looked like for Sydney. Again, at a 23, she was walking into every one-on-one with 3 out of 4 thoughts sabotaging her before the conversation even started. The restlessness, the second guessing, the fear that if she spoke up, it would come out wrong or land badly. Those were not character flaws. Those were just her score in action. Remember Sydney feeling like, wow, Jamie, this is really eye-opening to see this number. Like I knew I had some negative thoughts in there, but seeing this number, this gives me something to think about. And PQ actually gives you something not just to think about, but to do. Well, 3 months later, after practicing the PQ exercises, after doing it, Sydney took the assessment again. This time, she scored a 74. A 74. She had taken a score of 23 all the way up to 74. Basically, she had flipped the way her thoughts were programmed in her mind. Her stress had gone down, and she told me she felt like a happier version of herself, almost like she uncovered that version of herself that she knew was in there. She finally had that conversation with her boss, not from a place of scarcity, not as a complaint, but from a place of abundance, from a place of leadership. She came to him with an idea. Here's how I could close the gap on gaining experience to reach my next level. And guess what his answer was? It was a quick yes. And as Sydney called me afterwards, she was like, Jamie, that was so much easier than I thought it would be, which is a common result of what happens when you've got PQ practice in action. Interesting though, isn't it? Same woman, same boss, same workplace, different score, a score that she had improved. That is the power of PQ and the agency that you have in it as well. So what happened between that 23 and that 74? Well, that is the rest of this episode. So before we go any further, I want to give you something that you can use right now, because this is not just a podcast about concepts and in the leadership laboratory. We don't just talk about things. We actually experiment and take action. Today, you're going to get to do a workout with positive intelligence using something we call PQ reps. You can think about PQ reps like a quick trip to the mental fitness gym, except great news, there is no commute, there is no gym bag, you don't even need to shower afterward. And these reps take only between 10 and 30 seconds. A PQ rep is a fast reset for your mind. What it helps do is interrupt the noise. So if you've ever had, some people call it monkey mind or busy brain or just overload, this helps bring you back to the present moment. Create breathing room that you need to choose a response instead of step into a reaction. I often say it's an opportunity to drop out of your head and into your heart or into your body, where we think so much more clearly. When you have too many tabs open on your computer and it completely locks up? Mine just did this the other day. So if you're on a PC, you hit Control Alt Delete. I think it's Command something on Macs. You use that and then you close down some programs. And then suddenly, right, your computer works again. Well, that's exactly what a PQ rep does for your brain. You can also think about it like spraying WD-40 on your thoughts. It helps things move. When your thoughts feel stuck, when you're stuck in indecision, this helps lubricate it up so you can move forward. So I'm going to take you through 3 of my favorite PQ reps right now. Yep, right now. So you can sit with me and do this. You can put your feet on the floor. If you're walking, you can do this. At least 2 out of 3 of them you can. We're going to do this together. So PQ rep number 1. And these are things, listeners, that you can do throughout your day. I like to do them proactively. I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of today's episode. Well, here we go with your first one. So first one is called a triangle breath. A triangle breath. So to get situated for this one, sit up nice and tall or stand up nice and tall. Shake your hands out, release anything that you're holding on to, literally, figuratively, or both. And I'll invite you to take 3 breaths with me and picture a triangle as you're doing this. So as you take these 3 breaths, I want you to inhale up one side of the triangle, hold it across the second side of the triangle, and then exhale along the third. Ready? Okay. Inhale slowly up one side of the triangle, hold down the other, and exhale along the third. Let's take 2 more of those. Inhale up the side of the triangle, hold down the other, exhale, and 1 more. Inhale, hold, and exhale. Isn't that a nice little break? Simple, accessible, anywhere, anytime. You can do that before a difficult conversation. You can do that before a big presentation. You can do it before a one-on-one where the stakes feel high. 20 seconds and it changes everything about how you walk into a room. Great way to start off. Also, like giving your nervous system a nice little hug. All right, you want to do another one? Let's do another one. So PQ rep number 2. This one we're going to use your hands for. I love this one, especially on high pressure days. So for this one, go ahead and hold your hands up, maybe shake out your fingers. Take your thumb and rub it against your fingertips, alternating 1 finger at a time. And as you do this, as you switch from your index finger to middle finger to ring finger to pinky finger, focus on your fingerprints. See if you can find and feel the ridges of your fingerprints. Again, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky. Keep going slowly, back and forth, back and forth. Okay, well done. You just completed your second PQ rep. Congratulations. And here's a big question for you. As you were focusing on your fingerprints just now, what were you thinking about? What were you thinking about? When I ask this question in workshops, most people shrug their shoulders and say, well, my fingerprints. All I was thinking about were my fingerprints. And that is the whole point. That tiny, delicate act of sensory focus that is enough to interrupt a thought spiral or a negative pattern and bring you right back to the now. This is how you create space to respond instead of react. And you're saying, oh, I was still thinking about the email in my inbox, Jamie, or the problem I got to figure out at home. Well, then I invite you to do a few more of those. Here's 1 more for your bag of PQ reps. We've got toe pressure. So far we've used breath, we've used your hands, and this 3rd one involves your feet. Okay, so with your feet flat on the floor, go ahead and put pressure on your toes 1 at a time. See if you can alternate the pressure toe by toe and feel the connection between your feet and the ground. You can do both feet at a time. You can do 1 foot at a time. See if you can alternate the pressure among your toes. Big toe, next toe, middle toe, so on and so forth. Okay, how do we do, my friends? Well, nice work. You just completed 3 PQ reps. So I hope you're feeling some of the calm, some of the benefit of dropping out of your head and into your body. And, for that last one, I got to tell you, I've been practicing that for years. And I still don't have it fully mastered. But here's what my sage voice, which we'll talk about later, tells me. Sage voice says, so what? You still got the benefit, Jamie, of the PQ rep. And after all, this is about progress, not perfection. That's the whole game here. So now you've got 3 PQ reps in your toolkit. And I want to encourage you to schedule a reminder in your phone right now. I mean, seriously, pause this episode, program a reminder into your phone. I've been doing this ever since phones had that capability. So what is that? I don't know, 12, 15 years. Do this right now while you're thinking about it. Minimum of 1 rep a day. I have one in my phone that literally says breathe, just that reminder to breathe. And that's all it takes to start building your PQ muscle. I dare you to not feel the difference. Before we get back to this episode, I want to invite you into my Leadership Lab community. The lab is a monthly coaching community for professional women who want to deploy their confidence when it matters the most. When your heart is pounding and you know you need to speak up, when you can't avoid the hard conversation any longer, when it's time to advocate for yourself, go for the promotion, or lead under pressure. Leadership takes practice, and the best place and time to build those skills is in a safe environment before you need them. Inside the lab, you will receive live coaching from me on real situations that you're facing at work, and you'll instantly feel the support and hear the perspective of other women working through the same kinds of challenges. You might be relieved and surprised to know that you are not alone, and you'll feel empowered knowing you've got a loyal crew instantly cheering for you. Go to jamiemckinney.com/lab to request a free pass so you can test drive the lab. And while you're there, receive real-time support and genuine connection with a room full of women practicing leadership right alongside you. I hope to see you there. Now back to the episode. Okay, so here's where things start to get really good. And maybe a little uncomfy, a little uncomfortably relatable. And I say that because I'm right here with you. The saboteur voices. My saboteurs are very much alive and well, and getting to know them, though, is what changed things for me. So in PQ, we talk about mental patterns called saboteurs. The saboteurs make up the negative side of the PQ ratio. These are the villains in the story. They're the voices in your head that formed a long time ago, often as a form of protection, often very early in life. And over time, they stop serving you and they start sabotaging. And the sneaky thing about saboteurs is that they disguise themselves as being reasonable. They sound like caution or diligence or self-awareness, but underneath, they are running on fear. And here's a wild statistic. Research tells us there's a certain percentage of our thoughts that play on repeat every day. And I'm curious, what do you think that number is? Low, high? The number of thoughts that you woke up with this morning are the exact same percentage as they were yesterday? That number is quite high, my friends. It is 94%. The thoughts you woke up with this morning are largely the same ones from yesterday. And when those repeating thoughts are helpful, great, we want to keep them. But when they're running on the fear cycle, when they're in that self-doubt loop day after day, that's the pattern that we want to surface and interrupt. And when somebody tells you something as a little kid, for example, or even just at any sort of formidable point in your life, you create a story around it, for better or for worse. That story, that program keeps running until you consciously intercept it. In the event that it's a negative program, a false story, PQ labels those as your saboteurs, the saboteur voices that live inside your head. Those are the ones that we want to disrupt. All saboteurs are commanded by what is known in PQ terms as the judge. The judge is the overarching commander here. The judge is your inner critic. So if you've ever heard that mean girl voice or that alpha bully, the voice that says things to you that you would never, ever dream of saying out loud to another human being, that's your judge talking. The judge is the commander, and the judge has 9 accomplices. Those accomplices are the saboteurs. Now, I'll briefly touch on a few of the saboteurs. I'm going to share the ones that I see most commonly show up with my clients, in myself, in my workshops, and with my lab cats. And as I do, notice which ones feel familiar, which ones feel maybe a little too close to home. Because what's interesting about saboteurs is that while there are 9 in total, each of us are impacted only by about 3. But those 3 are pretty important to focus on because those are the ones that we've got the ability to change and just notice the improvement that follows. So one of the saboteur voices is called the controller. And the controller's nature is that it has to be in charge. It believes that its way is the best way. It carries enormous pressure. And it's the voice that'll say, you know what, I'm just going to do this on my own because if I give it to somebody else, they might screw it up. Like, it's just better off if I do it myself, even if it takes more time. That's the controller voice. Sound familiar? Another voice is the pleaser voice. This voice is kind and it's generous to others. It's also very nice, and it can be nice at its own expense. It's the voice that is sometimes saying yes on the outside, but on the inside is really saying no and is growing in resentment. That can be a really tricky one. Another saboteur voice is called the hyperachiever. I have to say, of all the workshops I've done with PQ, I've only seen hyperachiever not appear in the top 3 one time. So this one is incredibly common. The hyperachiever voice says, hey, you got to achieve at all costs. It's notorious for hitting a goal and immediately moving on to the next one without pausing for a second to celebrate. Does that sound familiar? You just hit a goal and you're right off to the next thing. It is a notorious characteristic of the hyperachiever. We also have, this is a fourth one I'll share here in brief detail, is the stickler. The stickler is synonymous with perfectionist. I know this one quite well. This is the voice that likes to dot every I, cross every T, and it puts incredible pressure on itself in the process. Again, one of my top 3, guilty as charged. The stickler wants you to do everything perfectly. I make the joke that I'm a recovering perfectionist. I've been a member of the perfectionist recovery program since 2013. I mean, which is somewhat true because that's when I first started to learn these labels. And stickler and perfectionist, they are synonymous terms. Other saboteurs are called the restless voice, the hypervigilant voice, the avoider, the victim, hyperrationale. So there's a lot here, but I wanted to give you just those first 4 in detail, the controller, the pleaser, the hyperachiever, and the stickler, to see if they resonate. Again, for most of us, while there are 9 on the list, research shows that only about 3 are ones that we're meaningfully impacted by. Other 6 don't have much of a grip, but those 3 can be tricky, either whispering or even flat out shouting. In addition to stickler, hyperachiever, and pleaser are my top 3. And I can name these so easily because I've done the work to identify them. I have also loosened the negative grip that they have on me because I've done that work. And one simple action that you can start to take right now is to name them. Call them out when you hear them. Once you name them, once you can call out a saboteur in that moment when you're feeling frustrated or irritated or annoyed, once you can call them out and say, oh, wait a minute, is that my stickler talking? Is that my hyperachiever talking? They instantly lose some of their power. And this is why it's so important to know what your saboteurs are. Once you have this vocabulary and this awareness, it's incredibly empowering. So for Sydney, her dominant saboteurs were the hyperachiever, working hand in hand with the avoider. Those were 2 of her top 3. The hyperachiever told her the conversation with her boss had to go perfectly or not at all. And the avoider said, well, if that's the case, then let's just skip it. And so she did, month after month, until she learned to hear those voices for what they actually were. They were not truth. They were not wisdom. They were not protectors. They were saboteurs doing their job. They were preventers. This is exactly the work that we do inside the Leadership Laboratory. Diagnosing your saboteurs, building the practice of catching them, and doing it inside a community of women who are right in there in it with you. If you have been feeling like your own brain is working against you, you want a space to do about it, or if you've ever had the thought cross your mind, gosh, if I could just get out of my own way, well, come take a look at what we do in the lab. The link is in the show notes, and I would genuinely love to have you there. As your coach, I also want to hold up a compassionate mirror here, because some of the lies your saboteur tells you might sound very familiar. Maybe yours says, you're not enough, or that doesn't belong to you. You don't deserve to be here. Or it might say, don't speak up. What if you're wrong? You're not qualified for this. Or, You got lucky. You got lucky with the promotion, or maybe they missed a detail. They're going to figure it out eventually. Oh my goodness. Well, that saboteur sounds a lot like self-doubt, doesn't it? It is a liar. And I will say that again because I want this to land big. Self-doubt is a huge, enormous liar. Here's how I can prove this to you. How many of you have ever been thrown into a situation where you were completely unprepared for it? Baptism by fire describes at least the first 10 years of my career. Guessing you can relate to that. And yet, what happened when you got thrown into that situation or you had no idea what you were doing? You figured it out, right? You have survived 100% of your hardest days. 100%. Might not have been pretty, right? Might have little bumps and bruises, could have been ugly along the way, but ultimately you have survived 100% of your hardest days. That statistic doesn't lie, but your saboteur does. And here's what I want you to do the next time your saboteur shows up. Challenge it. Not fight it, not resist it, but challenge it. Ask it, is this actually true? Like, is the thing that the saboteur is saying to you, or the words that it's whispering or yelling to you, are they actually even true? Because the truth behind you're not enough is actually, yes, you are. You are even more than enough. The truth behind don't speak up is, yes, speak up, because what if you're right? The truth behind you're not qualified is, au contraire, mon frère, you are absolutely qualified and you have proven it more times than you can count. The truth outpowers the saboteur every single time. And that truth, that is your sage voice, the voice that you can use to counteract the saboteur. That's what we'll talk about next. Your sage voice is the counteractor, is the victor in the story to every villain, the saboteur. The sage voice is kind. And I want to make a quick distinction here between kind and nice. Nice can avoid the hard thing. Kind, however, is direct. It's honest. It's completely in your corner. Your sage voice is kind. Your sage doesn't lie to you. It doesn't tell you the presentation was great when it could be better. It also doesn't tell you that one mistake canceled out years of success. Your sage tells you the truth. And then it points you forward. It's like having a built-in compass showing you exactly where to go and motivating you to get there. So let's take a look at what this is like in practice using the two saboteurs I hear about most often from the women I work with. So let's start with hyperachiever. We'll do a saboteur versus sage comparison here. So the hyperachiever's lies sound like this. Hyperachiever will say, you cannot fail. It will say, you can't ask for help. That's a sign of weakness. The hyperachiever will say, that one mistake will define your entire career. The hyperachiever, when you get a text or an email from a leader that says, hey, let's talk, that hyperachiever will interpret it as, we need to talk, you're about to get fired. It is so exhausting to live and lead under that kind of pressure, is it not? How short does the fuse get when that voice is loud? And I know because I've been there many times, and it's how I check myself when I can feel a short fuse coming on, is just how loud is my hyperachiever. Here is where your sage can intervene, though. Your sage can intervene in those moments and say to you from a very realistic, compassionate place, hey, remember that thing about failure being a part of learning? That's what's playing out here. What's not okay is staying stuck in it. It's okay to fail. It's okay to ask for help. Actually, that's healthy. And the people around you, they genuinely want to help you. And that one mistake, it does not negate your years of reputation, not even close, as long as you take a step forward and learn from it. That's the inner battle of the hyperachiever, and how much lighter, how much easier it is when you can tap into that sage voice and move forward with that. Next up, we have the stickler, synonymous with perfectionist. The stickler's lies are things like, every detail has to be perfect. I will not stop until this is flawless, even if I am working until 3 a.m. or getting up at 4 a.m. to do it. Even 99%, not good enough. Whew. Those are the lies that the stickler will tell you. Your sage, however, comes in and says, girlfriend, let's be real about this. Progress over perfection. Sage will say, hey, you know what? Actually, 80% is probably good enough. Or I've had top leaders tell me 60% is good enough. Hey, you know what? Share it before it's perfect and invite others to weigh in. Think about how much brain time you can save if you just share it and just say, hey, still work in progress. I'd like to get your feedback instead of waiting for it to be 100% perfect. Interesting shift, isn't it? The amount of time and energy you save when your sage is in the lead as opposed to your saboteur is immense. Can you feel that difference or invite that in? The sage doesn't lower the bar. It adjusts the pressure. I'll say that part again. The sage does not lower the bar. It does not lower the standard. However, it adjusts the pressure that you're putting on yourself. And that distinction is everything. And here's another important nuance to hold. Your saboteurs are not bad all the time. If your stickler energizes you around detail, if you're focusing on a detail and you're genuinely feeling good about that and excited and curious and you're leading from a place of positive emotion, awesome. You're in your sage territory. But there's a threshold. And if you cross over that threshold and you're still focusing on that detail, but now you're motivated via negative emotions, that's where you start to get in trouble. The fear, the doubt, the resentment. Hyperachiever, same thing. It can push you toward a lot of great things. I know you've achieved a lot of things because you're a hyperachiever. The question to ask yourself is, are you achieving from a place of joy and curiosity? If so, keep on going. If not, and it's causing you more stress, that's what you want to pay attention to. What emotion is driving this? Motivation through joy, energy, and passion, that's your sage. Motivation through fear, guilt, and stress, that's the saboteur. And here's the key point on this. Whatever emotion you have, it begets more of that same emotion. Emotion begets emotion, and emotion catalyzes action. That was one of the big takeaways, one of the big ahas in my journey when I came across positive intelligence, is that a lot of my reactions were negative. And it wasn't until I learned about PQ that I learned to hear those reactions and I learned to hear those thoughts. And I learned, oh my gosh, I've got the agency to change this. And as I started to do that, I immediately started to feel better. And it was such a huge relief. So next up, and here's something that if you're listening, you might want to write this down, or maybe even put this in the show notes, or say this part out loud, repeat it after me as I'm saying it so it sticks. This is the PQ operating system. So this is your magic wand. The next time you feel stuck, resistant, like you can't get out of your own way, here are the tactical steps that you take to move forward. Okay, PQ operating system. Here we go. Step 1, just stop. Pause. When you feel that resistance, when you feel that angst, when you feel that irritation, when you feel that annoyance, don't act on it. Don't react on it. Don't judge. Just notice it. Next up, step 2, it's a great time for a PQ rep. Create a little space. Give yourself 10 to 30 seconds where you're taking the breaths, you're going for your fingertips, using your toes. There's a whole variety of PQ reps that you can do. Do a PQ rep about 30 seconds. Then step 3, now with clarity now, listen for the saboteur and call it out, name it. Who showed up? What is it saying? Was that the hyperachiever? Was that the stickler? Was it the avoider? Okay, so here's the part that I encourage you to write this down or just repeat it back as I'm saying it so that it sticks. This is the PQ operating system. This is your magic wand. This is your tactical approach. The next time you feel stuck, resistant, annoyed, or like you just can't get out of your own way, here's what you do. All right, step 1, pause. Pause. Don't act yet. Don't react. Just notice. Okay, I'm in a space of resistance. I'm irritated. I'm annoyed right now. Just notice it. Don't judge it. Step 2, do your PQ rep. Create space. Give yourself 10 to 30 seconds to clear the noise. This is going to help you reclaim your control, and do that with the breathing exercises, fingers, toes. There's actually a whole list of PQ reps. Create that space. Step 3, Okay, now listen for the saboteur. Who showed up? What is it saying? Step 4, name it. Call it out. Identify the saboteur. Name it to tame it. And that isn't just a fun rhyme. That's something that therapists actually use that phrase, because naming a thought, naming the saboteur, calling it out is like you're blowing its cover. Like you're putting a spotlight on it and it instantly freezes. And as you do that, its power starts to diminish. So name it, call it out. If you say it out loud, that's going to help even more. And then step 5, choose your truth. All right, what does your sage voice say right now? And step into that. Step into forward motion. So once again, when you feel the saboteur coming up, step 1, pause. Take a beat. Step 2, take that beat via PQ rep. Step 3, listen, get curious, hear the saboteur. Step 4, call it out by name. And step 5, transition to your truth. Choose your truth. When you hear it, you can steer it. It's another fun rhyme, but it is so applicable here. When you hear the voice, you can steer it. If you don't hear it, if it plays on repeat in that 94% cycle without you ever noticing, it keeps holding you back. But the moment that you surface it, you can steer it. And that's the whole game. And something I'm not going into great detail on today is the neuroscience behind this and how parts of your brain and characteristics of your brain, like neuroplasticity and your reticular activation system, they're firing up alongside of you and they're helping you along the way. I'm not going to go into those details, but know that this is not just woo-woo, one person's opinion stuff. This is backed by neuroscience and global research. Well, Sydney learned to use this operating system. She started doing her PQ reps daily. She identified her dominant saboteurs. She knew that the hyperachiever was telling her that the conversation had to be perfect or it wouldn't do it at all. There was some Stickler in there as well. And the avoider was helping her skip it every time. But then she started to name those voices. And she practiced responding from her sage perspective instead. And 3 months later, she walked into that one-on-one. She had the conversation that she had been putting off for 11 months from a place of abundance with a clear idea and that quick yes from her boss. That's a victory. And that is not coincidence. That is the PQ operating system at work. Well, as we wrap up today's episode, we have skimmed the surface on PQ. And if you are curious about this and you want to learn more, oh my goodness, I would love to have that conversation with you. And in the meantime, picture a hot air balloon. There's you in the basket of a hot air balloon, and your sage powers, the kind, truthful, forward-moving voices inside your head, they are what fill up that balloon. They are what allow you to achieve uplift. And sandbags attached to the hot air balloon, those are your saboteurs. They are heavy, they are persistent, they're very convincing that they're keeping you safe. But really what's happening is they're holding you back. You know, it's hard to run, right? It's hard to be your authentic self when you're carrying those sandbags around. So as you start to notice your saboteurs and release them, it's like letting go of those sandbags. You don't just rise, my listeners and my lab cats, you soar. The leader who walks into hard conversations with clarity, who makes decisions without the spiral, who trusts her own read on a situation and stops outsourcing her confidence to everybody else's opinion, the one who knows her saboteurs by name and can call them out before they take the wheel, that woman, she's not somewhere off in the distance. She's already right there inside of you. She has been there the whole time. Positive intelligence doesn't create her, it surfaces her. And this is a practice. It's not a personality type. And as a reminder, Sydney's score went from a 23 to a 74 in 3 months. Not because she became a different person, not because resources at work were wildly different, not because any of those external circumstances changed, but because she showed up for the reps. So here's what I want to invite you to do before this episode is even over. I've got these 2 assessments for you. One where you can find out your PQ score and where you can find out your saboteurs. I'm going to give them to you. So the PQ score, that's the number that we talked about today. And then the other one will show you the whole distribution of your saboteurs, and in particular, those top 3. Together, these 2 assessments give you the vocabulary and the self-awareness to start using the operating system immediately. Like not just even this week, but the second you get them, this will be eye-opening. One condition to this, one condition. As you look at your score and you look at your saboteurs, I need you to pinky swear with me that you will look at them through the lens of curiosity. Curiosity, not judgment. Because when you are judging, you are not budging. When you are judging, you are not budging. There is no learning there. There's nowhere left to go. But when you look at it through the lens of curiosity, oh my goodness. Now this is where your possibilities start to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So the link is in the show notes. I'll also share it with you here, jamiemckinney.com/PQ_assessments. Takes about 10 minutes in total. It's one of the most useful 10 minutes you will invest in yourself this year, maybe in your whole life, like it genuinely, truly did for me. Well, here's what I want you to walk away with today. PQ is not about toxic positivity and positive thoughts all the time. This does not guarantee rainbows and butterflies. This is not about pretending the hard stuff isn't hard. This is about building the mental fitness to hear your saboteurs, to name them, and to choose your response instead of being hijacked by them. The reps are your workout. The saboteur assessment is your diagnosis. The sage is your truth teller. And the operating system, stop, listen, PQ rep, name, choose. That's your daily practice. Remember, you have survived 100% of your hardest days. Your saboteur is a liar. And when you hear it, you can steer it. Almost nothing is in our control. We cannot control what comes our way, but we can control how we respond to it when we're committed to a PQ practice. And if you want to go deeper on this work and do it inside a community of women who are right there with you, experimenting, practicing, growing together, the Leadership Laboratory is where that happens. So come check it out. The link is in the show notes. We would love to have you in the lab. Well, we have been building something special across these past 2 episodes, and I am fired up about where we are headed. EQ gave you the framework for understanding your emotions. PQ gave you today the mental fitness to intercept the patterns that hijack. And next, you'll hear from 2 guests as we discuss what it looks like to put both of these to work inside real leadership moments. The hard conversations, the high stakes decisions, the negotiations, the rooms where you need to show up as your full self. So stay close. These next episodes are going to be just as great. Until next time, if today's episode resonated with you, share it with one woman in your life who needs to hear it. That is how we grow this community, one incredible leader at a time. Keep experimenting, keep growing, and focus on progress over perfection.